Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free. Imagine having your weekly shopping cart filled for you and your meals for the week decided on. Taking all of that work off my plate is why I love Hungryroot. Fall is in full swing, and between work, family, and everything else on my calendar, I'm trying to make life a little simpler. That's why I turn to Hungryroot. Hungryroot takes the stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, and a wide grocery selection, it's easy to find options that fit your whole family's tastes and nutrition goals. Last week, I had their yuzu baked salmon with asparagus, and it was absolutely delicious, light, flavorful, and ready in minutes. I didn't have to think, plan, or run out of ingredients. Hungryroot just knows what works for me and helps me eat well, even when life gets busy. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg.
On today's episode of Parenting Great Kids.
In a time when anxiety is rising and joy feels harder to come by, what if the answer lies in something ancient and powerful?
And so being able to almost have kind of radical curiosity about my own kids and what lights them up is really important here.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Deborah, it's so fun to have you on PGK today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, when we think of awe, sounds beautiful, but it's a little bit abstract. I mean, we know what it feels like. It's hard to describe, but what does it actually look like when we're parenting in this daily chaos?
So I think being able to recognize what it feels like is really key, because when we think about emotions, especially with kids, we often default to things like happy, mad, sad, scared, stressed, anxious, something in that realm. And in fact, when I give parenting talks on, emotional intelligence, the phrases awe and wonder almost never pop up as emotions. And yet they are. And they're emotions that we are designed to feel. So how do you know you're feeling it? Well, when researchers try to say somebody feels this, what is that really happening in the body? Think about goosebumps for some people. Think about your eyes spontaneously filling with tears. You hear a beautiful song. You see a moving moment. The utterance of wow or some type of whoa they found cross-culturally, that even if you don't speak another language, but you hear a person doing that, they're experiencing wonder.
Yeah.
It's this almost instinctive, when something amazing is happening, the whole stadium erupts with that sound.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And I think for our kids, I often find it when my kids' eyes get really wide. And it almost feels like they're trying to see better. What is this thing in front of me that feels big and vast and wondrous, and I may not fully understand, but it is striking me for some reason. So, when you think of the 3-year-old who might go to the zoo and see an animal for the first time and their eyes get really wide, they've never seen an elephant before. Like that's wonder in that moment. And as we get older, sometimes those things feel routine, and it's often our kids then who can tap us back into, yes, in fact, an animal like that and so majestic is something worthy of pausing and looking at and feeling the wonder.
And don't we miss it? I'm thinking of my kids and grandkids as you're talking. And it's nice as a grandmother to be able to notice those moments in grandkids because I have more time and I'm more in tune with them than with my kids, because when our kids are growing up, I'm sure those moments just went right by me. The kids were in awe, but it goes right by me. So you have said that awe can actually calm kids, their anxiety, and it can build resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing. I mean, that sounds really powerful. When somebody feels that or is experiencing awe, what goes on in a child's brain?
So the research on this is so cool. And most of this is coming out of the Greater Good Science Center. They were founded by a Templeton grant and have 20 years of research here. They've discovered that when a child or a senior citizen is feeling this, it can reduce the levels of cortisol in the saliva. So these kind of biological markers of stress. For example, they found this with preschoolers in high poverty areas who went to an art class and came back and had lower levels. It can reduce the biomarkers of inflammation. When you think about, say, meditation or any form of being more mindful, awe is something that requires the senses. It's something you see, smell, hear, or, you're thinking about and you're feeling that. So it does require that slowing down. So it can slow down our breathing. It can cause us to pause and take that extra breath. And so researchers have found that you have these kind of biological shifts that happen. And that as part of that, whether it's senior citizens who are going on an awe walk once a week, which has now been adopted by a number of schools, or...
Well, sorry, back up.
Yeah.
An awe walk.
Yeah,
Talk to us about an awe walk.
They asked these seniors who are living in a senior living center, some just took their normal walk, and others, they said once a week, take a walk, but look for something that gives you that feeling, a sound, listen to the birds, notice something. And those who took those not daily, it was weekly, 20-minute awe walks, 6 weeks later, their sense of well-being had improved. And that was one of those takeaways that while I was working on this book, I applied almost immediately, and I still do it. It's like that has been one of the tiny life shifts that has been life-changing for me. Because I have a dog, so I am walking every day. And often it was like my podcast time or let me think about what I'm going to be writing next time. And I decided that for one of those quick walks I do with the dog each day, I would turn it into just let me tune into the neighborhood.
Right.
And this is now 4 years later since I first heard that study. I can name almost every bird in the neighborhood. I know the migration patterns. I never knew that before.
Wow.
I can tell you about the trees and when they turn. I can tell you where the turkeys are living in the woods. It's like I'd lived in this neighborhood, but I didn't really notice it till I started noticing it. And now I get so excited when I hear a cedar waxwing because they don't come that often. Or I'm like, oh, I can, it's this time of year because, this bird has come back. And I find that like building in those small moments, it's so easy, has really helped me kind of improve. Well, you're a New Englander. It's helped me improve my relationship with all the seasons, including winter.
Yes.
But it's also one of those practices where, I think building in small moments in the day where you can pause and reflect when life is so busy. This is one of those things I have to do anyway, right? I have to take the dog out each day. And so by saying, I'm going to unplug for this, I'm not going to have my phone out, I'm not going to hear my earpods in, that has just been this practice that has been so fulfilling. And I've written a lot about it, and I've had a number of friends who've adopted this. And they will sometimes text me a picture from their walk or something they heard on their walk. And it's this kind of, I would love this building movement to say we're so connected online that sometimes we almost forget what to look outside to what's right in front of us and to feel that sense of connection.
Well, we do forget. And I think, as you're talking too, I'm thinking about the moments when I've, had an awe sit or an awe walk or an awe experience, and they come through the little things. I have a, it sounds goofy, but this is what I do. I have a chair on my front porch, and I have a perennial garden right in the front. And I will go out and I will sit with my coffee, half hour, whatever. And I will look at all of the little flowers and marvel at how different each one is. And I'll take pictures, and it never fails that I walk away feeling so amazed at what is there and out there. And you're absolutely right. We can do that. Here's what I could hear a parent saying if they're listening right now. Well, that's great for you all. But I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old. And whenever I get any moments to myself, my mind is just reeling with worry and concern and things that I have to do. So how do parents break out of that sort of frenetic mindset and then become in awe of things?
So I to flip that a little bit, I think it's actually when you try in very small doses to find tiny moments of awe, that is a thing that helps you break out of the frenetic mindset.
Okay.
And so, it's not, and this is another piece I love about the research. Yes, you can go to the Grand Canyon or go to the Sistine Chapel and you can feel this. But also most of us are not traveling there, especially not with small children.
Right.
Which is why that the dewdrop that's on the flower, right? And the way the light reflects off of it, that is its own marvel and its own wonder. And so for me, and I understand, I'm a mom now. I have an 11, 14-year-old, and they're very busy in their own ways, but I so remember the intensity of when they were younger. And I think this is where, for me, getting the framework of sources or instigators of awe, things that incite awe, has been really helpful for me personally. This book very much has lots of personal stories. This is a journey book. This is not a prescriptive book of like, you should do this. But having that framework has been really helpful because when I do get overwhelmed or busy, I can sometimes begin to tick through and say, how do I add a little bit more of this to my diet? And so the book is arranged around, and the most obvious chapter number 1 is nature, right? Because we think about that, but also art, music, big ideas. And this is where kids can be really fun because they ask you big questions.
They do.
And they're really amazing questions where you think, oh, I really don't know the answer to that. There's the being in community, which is something we need more and more. And with a lot of lonely people, including a lot of moms, there is the wonders of the life cycle. And so that's where, holding a small baby is one of life's most wondrous moments. Sometimes they're crying like crazy, but then they fall asleep and you look down again and you're in awe and wonder again.
Right.
And also the other end of the life cycle as well, which I could do a whole podcast about how we don't let kids see enough of the other side of the life cycle.
Right.
And then finally, and this is so exciting, Meg, the most common source of awe for humans, it turns out when they do these longitudinal studies, is moral virtue. And so this is one of those things that when I'm really overwhelmed, this is one of the most common ones, is to remember the people who are helping me, to be on the lookout for the helpers, to allow myself to feel the gratitude when my neighbor brings in my trash barrels.
Right.
To look for the story, not doom scroll, but now that my kids are a little older, to look for the story of people behaving well, because I want to counteract what they're seeing. It's very easy for kids to get cynical or scared because goodness doesn't make the news very often. Okay? And so I am on the lookout all the time for my kids of a person doing something kind or brave that I can just share in small doses in the car, share an article, oh my gosh, did you hear? Because that I feel like is a driver of not just on wonder, but of hope for these kids.
Oh, absolutely. I was thinking about this last night. As a pediatrician, I hear about anxiety and depression all the time. And I know that parents do as well. I think that when kids hear about anxiety and depression over and over and over, they start to think, well, could that be me? Could that be me? But they never hear the counter. Which is, what happened to your day that was joyful? What happened in your day that was remarkable? What did you see a person who did something that made you feel good? So what you're really talking about is sort of counteracting that by bringing to the fore and to the surface of their brains looking for something positive and something good and something that will make you feel better. Because the truth is, if you hear about a person who did something kind to a dog who was almost got hit by a car, whatever, it just makes you feel good. And I think that, neurochemically too is very helpful for kids. So I love that you're sort of counteracting, the talk about and the focus on, anxiety and depression in kids with something that's very, very powerful as well, and might even help reverse some of those things, in the moment. A lot of parents feel burned out and they listen to us and they go, oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. One more thing that I have to do during the day. Is this really feasible? And, because a lot of times when you do parenting talks, and this, parents can also feel a little wary, like, I just don't have not even a second of bandwidth to do anything different. So talk to parents about, and particularly mothers who are listening, talk to them about how they can incorporate these moments of awe in their lives, like sitting in the car waiting to pick up their kids from preschool.
This is my jam because I'm not, again, prescriptive parenting. I understand that kids are so different, right? Like something that works with one of my children will not work with the other one.
Right.
And so being able to almost have kind of radical curiosity about my own kids and kind of what lights them up is really important here. For me, the idea of awe and wonder, rather than something to add to the to-do list, the metaphor I like to use is it's like getting a new prescription glasses, right? I can see right now, but if I put on a new prescriptions, I can see a little more clearly. So it's not that I'm moving to a new neighborhood. It's that I am actually seeing my own a little more clearly. And that requires sometimes a little intentionality and slowing down. But also the nice thing about awe and wonder is that this is an emotion that actually doesn't take a lot of cognitive lift in the sense that you can't force yourself to feel it. You can just kind of put yourself in the path of it. And so, for example, when I drive a lot, kids have a lot of activities. They've been in different camps all summer. I think about, okay, so how am I spending my time in the car, right? There are a couple of podcasts that I know get me to have those feelings, like Moth Radio Hours, hearing people tell their stories.
Oh, those are great. Yeah.
I get goosebumps, right?
Fall is my favorite season. Apple orchards, warm soups, grandkids jumping in leaf piles. But let's be honest, it's also when life gets busy. Between back-to-school routines and holiday prep, cleaning my house was the one thing I just couldn't keep up with. And that's why I booked a cleaning with HomeAglow. It was such a gift. HomeAglow is a top-rated home service platform dedicated to making your space clean and tidy. With their easy online booking, I was able to schedule a background-checked cleaner in my area in just a few clicks. No stress, no time wasted. It felt so good walking into a clean, peaceful home, like I could finally breathe. Honestly, it's been great for my mental clarity and energy. And with their Forever Clean membership, I can book unlimited cleaning starting at just $19 an hour. Take home cleaning off your plate this fall by using HomeAglow. Head to homeaglow.com/Dr. Meg to get your first 3 hours of cleaning for only $19. That's HomeAglow.com/Dr. Meg. Thanks so much to HomeAglow for sponsoring this episode.
There's nothing worse than knowing you need help, but not knowing where to start. I've had friends and patients who've said they spent months trying to find a therapist who was the right fit, who took their insurance, and who actually had an open appointment. And this is exactly why, I'm so glad companies like Rula exist. Rula is a healthcare company that makes mental health care affordable and easy to access. With Rula, you can get matched with a licensed therapist who fits your needs and your schedule. In fact, you can book your first appointment as soon as the next day. They take most major insurance plans, and many people pay as little as $15 per session, sometimes even $0, depending on your benefits. You don't need to figure it all out on your own. Rula will help you find the right provider, get scheduled, and stay on track toward your goals. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to rula.com/DRMEG to get started today. After you sign up, they'll ask how you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. That's RULA.com/DRMEG. Take the first step toward better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares.
Wherever you go, whatever they get into, from chill time to everyday adventures, protect your dog from parasites with Credelio Quattro. For full safety information, side effects, and warnings, visit CredeliaQuattroLabel.com. Consult your vet or call 1-888-545-5973. Ask your vet for Credelio Quattro and visit QuattroDog.com.
Teenagers are really good at this, about curating playlists that they know are going to help them feel certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like, okay, so if I'm going to be having, a tough week, like what's my playlist that I want to be using here? Yeah. This is where also, I can find it really helpful to get a friend to do this with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Life's really busy. We know that feeling socially connected can be a source of awe. So, for example, I write about in the book that one of my very best friends lives in Wisconsin, best friend from high school. We haven't seen each other in many years. And she was dealing with incredible stress because her youngest child, who has Down syndrome, has been through leukemia twice. And during the second bout, it was just lots of hospital time in the winter in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel a little bit helpless as a friend, right? So one of the things I started to do, thinking like platitudes don't help. I can't bring her dinner, which I would love to do. Yeah. So I look for something beautiful every day anyway. I'm going to text it to her with no expectation that she replies, right? And I told her I was going to do this. Old friends. And so it might have been a song. It might have been a quote. It might have been something I saw on my walk. It might have been a goofy face my kid made, whatever it was. And, sometimes she would send stuff back, right? Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it'd be quiet, or sometimes it would be a response to it. And then she began to tell me about how in Children's Hospital, there was an art gallery of local artists. Mm-hmm. So, this had inspired her to go and start taking her daughter in the wheelchair through the art gallery. And said, she wrote to me, and she actually writes about it in the book, that she had never appreciated art more. It wasn't the museum, it was the hospital walls. And that they had thought to, create these paintings and bring those in. And I thought that is where, it is when we are really stressed, we need this the most.
Yeah.
And so it may be that you actually say to a friend, you know what I need? I need a beautiful picture every day.
Yes.
I can't find it right now, but you know what? Your mom lives far away and wants to help you. You know what you can do, Mom? You can set, and the next time you find something that just gives you goosebumps, can you just send it to me? And I want to feel it too. And so it can be a shared activity. And I think that that's important too, because again, it can be very isolating being a parent of young kids. It should be a village. It's not often enough.
It isn't. No.
And we can go online to ask our questions that we're scared about. But I think if we could also use technology, in this way to say, hey, what are those things? What are the hopeful stories? What are the beautiful things that, that we can be looking for as well?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Carl the Collector. Now, you advise PBS Kids show about Carl the Collector, and it talks about a neurodivergent character. And what has been the impact of that show, and how can media like this help shift how we talk about inclusion at home, at school, church, anywhere?
So this show has my whole heart. It came out in November. It's called Carl the Collector. And it's the first PBS Kids show to feature a neurodivergent lead. So there have been other characters, but what I love about that is that means that Carl's autism, while there, isn't his defining characteristic. It is part of who he is. And so he has this wonderful group of friends. Carl's a raccoon who collects lots of things. He's kind of wingman is Sheldon the beaver, who is very empathetic. There are these twins, Nico and Arugula, who are very, very different temperaments. And then you have Lotta, who is also on spectrum. She represents kind of girls on spectrum, and Forrest, who definitely struggles with attention. And these friends are so good to each other. And I think this is where this show has brought such a source of wonder for me, is that we're looking at a lot of the, social skills, emotional skills, character traits that help kids flourish. And we are just showing a really appealing group of friends who are really different and who are good to each other. And so one of the great things about working on the show is there are people who are neurodivergent at every step. So while I am the social emotional character advisor, we have two other advisors who focus on getting the autism part right. They stim. Carl has his stims. Lotta has hers, right? It's there. It's quiet. But Lotta wears her headphones when she starts getting overwhelmed with sensory. And there's one episode kind of on it when somebody was teasing her about being a headphone girl, but mostly it's just something she pulls out, right? So you just see it there. We have a lot of young writers who are neurodivergent, who are bringing their own experiences from childhood here. And I've had so many moments since this has come out. Sometimes it's adults who are saying, I wish I'd had this representation when I was younger. I've talked to a couple of moms who said their kids that's like me. Like, I collect like they do. I wear headphones like Lotta does. And, I really feel like in our ideal world, which is what we're always trying to build for our kids. Like, I'm a big fan that you got to kind of be that change you want to see in the world, is that, we are really embracing all abilities, all kinds of minds, and that we can see the beauty. Again, that's talk about awe and wonder. Like, when you can look at the person in front of you and you can see their strengths, no matter what their differences are from you, like when you can see kind of that beauty, that dignity inside of them, that's such a great source. And so I'm super proud of the show. I think that it's a big-hearted show. And it's a great way to open up conversations with kids about, sensory sensitivity. We have one, we're introducing a new character who's nonverbal and uses a tablet to communicate. And I think sometimes as parents, if your kids are not neurodivergent, you may not know how to begin the conversation. And if your kids are, you want a world that sees their strengths. And so this is a show that's just doing some great things.
I love it because, I've seen a lot of neurodivergent kids in our practice. And of course, what we've learned over the past even 10 years has been enormous compared to what we knew 30 years ago. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we never heard the term Asperger's. We never heard the term autism spectrum. And so I think that people are learning more about it. And the thing about a show like this, it's cool, is that parents can learn about what's going on, because it's hard to get in the mind of a neurodivergent person. And I think beginning to understand how their mind works, and that it really doesn't work like ours, and that we really can't connect the way we think we should be able to. I just love it. Let's just jump on to technology. We think of technology as the enemy. It's the big bad thing. We have social media and cell phones. I end up talking to parents a lot about that. But you argument that technology can actually inspire awe. Can you talk about that?
So I think at its core, I view technology as a tool. It's something that's ubiquitous. It's here to stay. And so I have to be mindful about how I use it. And I need to model that for my kids. And so one of the things that Dr. Keltner, who's the lead researcher, when I asked him this question, he said, I often think about technology, you can think about it as almost a gateway to awe and wonder, right? We want the sensory world, but sometimes you might discover a local artist that then leads you to that. You might discover a song. You might watch fabulous fungi and be like amazed at, the mushrooms of the world and how they grow. It might help you connect with a family member who's far away. And I think when you can recognize what that emotion of awe and wonder is, and recognize that when I'm doom scrolling, I don't feel it. And I think being honest with myself, I don't. Like, this is where it's like, it's almost a deadened feeling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so, to notice when, again, like a lot of this with writing this book is being like mindful of being like, oh, like I felt that, when I heard that. And so I want to keep that in mind. And so for me, one of my favorite things about technology and wonder is the sharing capacity. And I don't mean sharing for the likes and the clicks. I mean sharing to build relationships. And so, again, like, I have a 14-year-old. She's not on social media, but, I text her, and I've discovered it actually has opened up a whole communication line with her, because there's sometimes, I can be texting just come downstairs. Have you gotten your water bottle? Have you done your homework? Or I could also be like, oh my gosh, I just saw this outside and I want to show you.
Yeah.
And what I've discovered is that when I start sending her more pictures of beauty, then she has responded more in kind. And so, even on my Instagram feed, when I started to look for more art and things that were beautiful, it changed my whole algorithm, right? Instead of getting a bunch of fashion and makeup ads, I'm now getting, it's much more filled with like earth art and other things.
Well, and that's exactly what Instagram does, is because they follow you and they see what you like, what interests you, and then they start pulling in more of that. And that's fabulous. We only have a couple minutes left. This goes so fast. But I'm sure there are a lot of parents listening out there who go, I've really just sort of lost the joy in parenting, and I want to reconnect with my kids, and I want to teach my kids how to feel wonder and awe. Where do I start? Is it possible, well, you just alluded to it, to inspire your kids to have awe? And is it possible for me to actually get to the point where I can get my joy back?
I believe it. And I believe life is long and has seasons. And the intensity of, say, the diapering stage doesn't typically last forever. And so a big piece during this time of intensive mothering, and that can be early childhood, that can be teenagers, is tapping into this for yourself, because kids are incredible observers of human behavior. They watch us. They watch everything we do. And I really believe that long after, they may not remember everything we say, but they can remember what we did and how they felt around us. And so, again, as part of my research on this, I have found myself slowly picking up a few new hobbies, which I didn't feel like I had time for, but they're things I'm doing almost with my kids. I've actually picked up embroidery, something my grandmother used to do. And my oldest is really into art. And so like she's been doing some of the designs for me, and my kids are watching me do it, and they're complaining about the threads left around the house, but they're seeing me do something for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
And just, and when I go on my walks, it's like, that's mom time, right? And it's important for them to know that, like, that is. And also, I'm better at speaking out loud when something does inspire me. Like, they may roll their eyes that I pull them out to hear the peeper frogs when they emerge in March. But honestly, there's no sound I love more than the peeper frogs in March, because it means that winter is over, and I will pull them out. In fact, this year, my 14-year-old, I ran upstairs on March 16th, and her window was open. She's like, I know what you're about to say.
Oh, how funny.
Because she could hear them. She's like, you're coming to get me to hear the peepers. And I thought, you know what? You're going to be 45 years old. Remember that? Because I remember my dad pulling me out to see the meteor shower.
Yeah.
And those are core memories that are not about big vacations. Those are core memories that are about, I remember how excited my dad got about the stars. And if they remember how excited I got about wildlife in the neighborhood, that is something when life goes through its darker phases to remember, like, awe is the and. It's like, yes, life is difficult and it is so beautiful. Like, yes, there's evil in the world and there's tremendous goodness. And I think that It's the and that really helps us find that joy and flourishing as we make our way through.
Yeah, I love it. You're absolutely right. I think that those are the moments that kids will remember, listening to the peeping frogs or seeing stars with a parent that leave a huge impression on them and a positive impression. They may say at the time, oh, this is so goofy. Why do you want me to do that? But when they look back on it, it gives them such a great feeling of joy and comfort. My guest today has been Deborah Farmer Kris. She's a leading child development expert, and her book is Raising Awe Seekers. And I love your term, awe walks. And, I highly recommend that people read it because it's very, I don't want to say counterculture, but it's counter conversation. We have so many conversations about so many negative things that we need to be on top of and change in our kids and so forth. But this is a very positive one that'll have a very positive effect on kids. So I thank you for writing this, Deborah. How can people find you and more about what you do?
So if you go to parenthood365.com, you'll find all my social channels and newsletter and things like that.
Parenthood 365. I was going to ask you what the 365 stood for, but I answered it when I was formulating the question.
So it means that parenthood never stops.
I'm a little slow in the uptake here, but I got it. So anyway, Parenthood 365. Deborah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. It was a joy.
I stopped Googling parenting advice when I found this. Dr. Meg Meeker's PGK Insider community is where real parenting help lives.
There's a reason so many parents trust Dr. Meg Meeker. Now her courses, parenting forum, and trusted answers are all in one place, the PGK Insider community. Join free at meekerparenting.com. Real answers from a pediatrician who gets it.